We started our trip in Boulder, Colorado, and we were able to go to Elderado Canyon, which was this cool sandstone-looking canyon that climbers use it. A lot of hiking trails around there, and it was a really cool experience to experience Boulder and the type of people that are there.
We got some snacks and some water, and then we started walking up the base of the mountain. We saw climbers, at first we were looking for climbers, and then we saw a few climbers that were lead climbing and bouldering, which seemed like a lot of fun.
We drove to Boulder, which is where my brother Peter lives with his wife Jeannie, and they were so kind to set us up for a couple nights at their house. And it was great for me because the kids have never really spent time with Peter and Jeannie, and they got to really kind of hang out. And Peter and Jeannie came with us. They showed us our first hike, which was this Elderado Canyon, which is actually in Boulder.
It was really cool because I got to meet my uncle for the first time, because the real first time I met him I was really little, but this was a lot of fun because he acts like an actor that I really like named Larry David, so that was pretty cool.
We are bringing forth a thunderstorm. This is day 2 of our trip. We're really excited about all we have in store for us. So behind me is Long Lake outside of Boulder, Colorado. And as you can see, this is a very beautiful area, snow-capped mountains, just very pristine and untouched.
Hi, I'm Morgan Mears. I'm here at Brainard Lake, right outside of Boulder, Colorado. It's been pretty fun. We couldn't pass a river, so we had to cross a road and get to a different trail. So now we're on the Long Lake Trail, and we just saw 2 moose. So that was pretty cool. Got a lot of fun pictures.
I was very excited to see live animals in their natural habitat. That was really cool for me. So as soon as we park the car and start walking, the first thing we come to is the lake. And immediately we see one moose just walking through, drinking water, and he was really not fazed by us. And so we just kind of stood and we were able to take pictures and observe, and then we see another moose come in. So that was really cool for me because I love seeing wildlife that for sure we don't have over here on the East Coast.
What's really cool is here it is in late July, mid-July, and there's patches of snow everywhere. So I imagine we're probably at about 10 to 12,000 feet. On the second day that we were in Boulder, we decided to drive up to Rocky Mountain National Park. Really interesting park, really huge park. One of the ways you can access the park is you go up this road called Trail Ridge Road. It is a single track, one-way dirt road, no guardrails. And so oftentimes you feel like you're right on the edge of some sort of cliff about to go off. 3 of us were fine. Nicole wasn't so fine. She would often white knuckle it as we were going around the corners.
We saw elk up there, several elk, and we even saw Yellow-bellied marmots, which sort of look like a gopher, groundhog, beaver combination.
So far, it's just been a really cool experience, and look forward to sharing more with you later.
Moab was just a lot of fun because everyone who was there just seemed really laid back, and just like everyone, it was the kind of place where everyone knows everyone. It's the kind of town like you'd want to retire to or just like live in general. Like it's a very chill town. It's nothing like I've ever been in before, which is really cool to me.
We stayed at a tiny house for the first time ever, and that was definitely a neat experience. Someplace that I wish we had very few belongings, that we could live in a place like that full time.
There was a little loft that me and Morgan stayed in, and it had really steep steps. Really nice that we were able to just kind of hang out up there.
Because it was so hot, it was over 100 degrees every day in Moab, we decided to visit the national park in the evening, probably around like 5:30. And so we were able to get there before sunset so we could kind of do a small hike.
Right now I'm at Arches National Park, which is where there are at least, I think, 8 different arches. They all have special names. There's the double arch, which is 2 arches really close to each other, so you can like sort of look through them at the same time.
You really feel tiny when you stand against something so large as the double arch. And we spent some good time there.
There was a long trail up to the delicate arch, and that was kind of in the beginning. But it was really pretty once you got up there. We were there at sunset, so it wasn't quite as hot, and then you got to see the sunset kind of fall on the arch. There was a lot of people there, so we kind of climbed up on a rock, and we were able to see it that way.
But all in all, just the size of the arches and the cliffs at Arches National Park, well, it was just really amazing. I would highly recommend going. While we were in Moab, we did some adventuring. We took a whitewater rafting trip on the Colorado River. Amazing experience.
Whitewater rafting on the Colorado River was super fun. That was something that I definitely wanted to do as a family.
So earlier in the day we went whitewater rafting, which was a lot of fun because I really enjoyed kayaking and paddling in general.
We had a great guide. The rapids were running class 2, class 3, we were told, so they were really fun.
Woo! Come on, Kate, ready? Oh my God! All right.
Zach, our guide, was very knowledgeable and very skilled on the river. He also knew how to get us to have a great time.
So we played a little game where we would stand up kind of at the front of the boat, and we would spin the boat back and forth in both directions and just see how long it took you to just basically fall off the boat into the water.
One of the highlights of the Whitewater rafting trip was when we paddled right through White's Rapid. This is the biggest rapid on that run of the river, and we decided that we were gonna flip the boat. And I'm not talking about flipping the boat on the side, flipping the boat end over end.
We decided that it would be fun to flip the boat. Sounded like a good idea. In hindsight, I was terrified and scared that I was gonna lose my life, our family was gonna be gone.
There was like 2 little rapids. Well, there were 2 big rapids, but there were 2 of them, and we were supposed to flip the boat on the second one, but me, Dad, and Morgan all bailed out on the first one, thinking that that's when we were gonna flip.
So the way that you're supposed to go into the rapid is it's actually 2 rapids, where you hit the first rapid and then you go into the larger of the 2.
It was a bit scary at first because you just got pushed under by the really big rapids and you didn't really know what was happening like for a split second, and then I was able to like realize where I was, what was happening, and so it was good.
I just kind of closed my eyes and just kind of held my breath while it passed over me, and then I just swam to the raft when I had time. Do that. Definitely something I probably won't ever do again.
After that, it was more fun than like scary.
The family and I visited Canyonlands National Park, where we drove to Mesa Arch. Really interesting arch in that it was on the edge of the rim into the canyon.
Mesa Arch is gorgeous, and that when you look through the arch, you see more red rock through it. It's almost like a little looking glass of sorts, but it's like an extreme drop right off the back of it. So I was worried about the kids. On our way to the Grand Canyon, we stopped in a town called Kanab. And Kanab is a really small town. Chris found this motor lodge, an old motor lodge that was probably from, like the 1960s originally.
I wouldn't say it was a great place to stay because the rooms were a little small, but it was a pretty interesting experience.
It was pretty much a motel. There was probably about 10 rooms, and they were all just one floor. It was like outside to get to each of the rooms, so it was just very old school.
The next day we go to breakfast, it's just this small table with like some hard-boiled eggs and like some croissants on it. And I was like, I guess this is breakfast.
The coolest thing was they had bicycles that any of the guests could borrow. So we, instead of having to use the car, we could just park, and we used bicycles to ride around the town, went to a pizza place, went through a little park. And anyway, it was a good little stopover on our way to the north rim of the Grand Canyon. Did a short hike on the north rim side of the Bright Angel Trail.
At the North Rim, I really enjoyed seeing the buffalo. There were at least 2 different herds of buffalo as we were driving through. I had never seen a buffalo in person, and man, these things were humongous.
So that was really cool because I think I've only seen buffalo in zoos before.
Babies were really cute because they would pretty much just follow where the mom went, but because they were so much smaller, it took them that many more steps to get like across the road, which they did on our way out.
Got a little nervous that they were gonna kind of run into a car, run into us, but it was fine.
So we visited the south rim of the Grand Canyon, which was an awesome view. Just standing next to the south rim was humbling. You definitely feel tiny, and the world feels very big. We were able to hike down into the canyon, which was a cool experience. We took the South Kanab Trail. I tell you what though, the elevation changes from the rim down to the bottom of the canyon are pretty significant.
So on the trail, it was a bunch of switchbacks, and it first just started with about five or so switchbacks, steep switchbacks, back and forth down to pretty much, it seems like a one-lane path. Like it was one way.
We are on the South Kanab Trail, and first on the South Kanab Trail, the first thing you come to is Ooh-Ah Point, and they say that they just named it that because that was the first point that you could stop and say ooh-ah, and there's actually a sign that points it out. Then we continued on to where we are right now, which is Cedar Ridge. We're assuming this is where they kind of stop and give the mules a break on their way down to the bottom of the canyon. A little bit of shady spots for us to stop and have a snack and shoot this video.
We were sitting in this little shady spot, and a squirrel came up to us, and Dad gave me the idea to give him some water. So I took off the cap from my Nalgene and I poured water into it, and he drank directly from that water. I then drank out of the bottle, but it's cool.
So when we first got down there, we were like, oh, this is like really easy to go down. Well, little do we know, when we go back up, it's gonna be extremely difficult. My knee was hurting, my ankles were hurting.
That was awful. That was probably, I don't know, I think that was the hardest hike, because it was straight up stairs. It was like a mile and a half of walking upstairs, pretty much.
By the time we started our ascent, the sun was just full on out, and it was tough. I mean, it really is, like Kate said, it's really like walking stairs, lots and lots of flights of stairs in the sun. I was kind of spent. You know, at some point you sort of start crying.
One of the cool things we saw when we were hiking out of the canyon was the mule train. And I saw these two rustic dudes that were truly authentic cowboys. I could totally see 100 years ago, guys just like them driving these mules right out of the canyon. It was a really interesting sight to see.
So one thing that is interesting about this trip is several of these places I came when I was a teenager, similar in ages to both Kate and Morgan, and it's been a totally different experience coming back as an adult and seeing things for the second time. It's been fun being able to introduce these to the girls at the same age that I was when I first came out.
I didn't expect any of it. Like, I came in thinking the Grand Canyon was like, oh, it's gonna be like another one of these stops we've done. But no, we went in and it was like a whole little town. We didn't have Wi-Fi for the majority of the time, so that was interesting too. But yeah, I mean, it was an interesting place. I'm not gonna say it was cool, but like, it was definitely interesting.
Zion National Park is a beautiful park. It has very exposed mountains which form kind of a sawtooth ridgeline. The mountains are overwhelming, and you drive right into Zion Canyon, which is a humbling experience. The first day we were here at Zion National Park, we booked a canyoneering trip with Zion Rock and Mountaineering guides. We took an Isuzu Trooper up some pretty gnarly Jeep trails to get to this canyon called Water Canyon. And there we did 3 or 4 different rappels. We hiked about 3 miles through some pretty cool terrain.
Basically, the trail was really like thin, and there was bushes on both sides, which were blackberry bushes. And we just kind of walked through, and if there was one close by us, we would just kind of pick it, and then you would, of course, be able to eat it since it came directly off of the little stem.
Canyoneering is basically when you're rappelling down the side of a cliff, and a lot of the cliffs we did were sort of at a diagonal, but not diagonal where it went out when you were going down, diagonal where it was going in.
I love the rappelling. It's a little bit of a thrill, but you know you're safe as long as you trust your gear. And like I said, our guide was really great. But yeah, canyoneering in Zion was definitely a good thing.
Another one of the rappels that I really liked was you rappelled down into this funnel, and then the rope was a few feet short of the water. And at a certain point, you just let go of the rope will zip right through your ATC device, and you go crashing down into the water.
So then I get down there, and then the instructor's like, okay, jump, and I'm like, okay. So I jump back, this water's freezing cold.
Just kind of mucky. Of course, you couldn't really see anything. There were a bunch of little fish and tadpoles and mosquitoes all in it. So it was definitely not good water to be swimming in.
Frankly, the water probably wasn't the cleanest. You had been sitting there a while, but you know what? We're not any worse for wear on that one.
Afterwards, after I looked back, I was like, I'm glad I did that, because that was actually like a lot of fun.
During this hike, we had to basically jump into this hole that was filled with water and swim out the other side. And it just so happens it was Nicole's turn to go first.
So this one last water rappel, the family decided that I should go first. But you look in the water and you're looking down and it's so dark.
So I remember thinking to myself, should I man up and should I jump into this hole and swim out the other side first, or should I send my wife? Well, in the wise words of Sala from Raiders of the Lost Ark, there might be asps, very dangerous. You go first. So there's a river that runs through Zion National Park, and that forms one of the coolest features in the park. It's called the Narrows. It's a slot canyon that you hike up the river through the canyon. We hiked about 24 miles total and had a really good time. You hike through rapids, you climb over boulders. There were a lot of people, but it was a really enjoyable experience for us.
You are walking on rocks, and I don't mean just pebbles. I mean big rocks and the water is murky, so you're having to really balance.
There wasn't much of a trail to it. It was a river that kind of went around rocks, and there was a lot of rocks in it, and you couldn't really see where you're stepping. So it got a little bit dangerous as you didn't trip over rocks and kind of completely swamp yourself.
What was interesting about the Narrows is that I had never done a hike quite like this, where you hike literally in the middle of the river through a canyon, towering hundreds of feet on each side. Very cool experience.
There were so many people there. I wish there weren't as many. Like this was like more of like a sectioned off trail. People didn't really know about it. And because I feel like it'd be more fun that way because we could have spent more time.
I'm really proud of my family for their bravery and for their grit and getting through the hiking. We hiked about 5 miles or so in total. Their courage in rappelling off the side of these cliffs. And I'm really proud of my wife for accompanying me on this adventure. I know most wives wouldn't do this, and I really appreciate that.
Vegas, baby, Vegas.
In Las Vegas, we just stayed there for a night, and it was a last-minute decision, and so we were able to get a great hotel room at the Venetian.
The hotel was huge. There was a mall inside, there was a huge casino, and like I've seen movies before where like people like go to these hotels and stuff, but it was nothing I expected.
We decided to sort of run through as many hotels as we could that were on the Strip.
We were able to walk kind of on the Las Vegas Strip, and you're able to walk pretty much from hotel to hotel without having to ever cross a real street.
And I definitely wanted to go to the Bellagio because the Chihuly glass exhibit that is the entire ceiling of the Bellagio lobby, which was gorgeous. And then we went outside, and they have a huge body of water in the front of their hotel, and the water fountains are set to music. And that was kind of a fun show to watch at night.
But at the Venetian, they had like 8 different pools. We only went into one, and we went into about like 1.5 feet.
Las Vegas is definitely worth another trip. Hollywood sign has appeared in tons of different movies, and it was cool to see that with my own eyes.
I'm a big movie buff, so LA was really cool for me because when we got to Hollywood, we got to go on the Walk of Fame. So when we were walking along, I was just staring at the sidewalk the whole time.
To me, it didn't really do anything. Like to Morgan, she loved seeing all the stars, but I really couldn't care less. I don't really know what they are.
And then we got to, I think it's called the Chinese Theater, which was really cool because it has all the handprints in front of it. That was really cool to put my hands exactly where they had their hands. And Bruce Willis's square said Yippee-ki-yay in it, which makes me think like that's where Die Hard first premiered, so that was really cool for me.
So another site that we saw in LA is the famous Nakatomi Tower.
That is where they shot the greatest Christmas movie of all time, Die Hard, starring Bruce Willis and Alan Rickman. I was like, oh man, this is so cool. I wonder if we can like walk up to the building. But then a security guy came out and said we couldn't take pictures on the property. So of course I took a selfie in front of it while we were still on the property.
In Huntington Beach, we were fortunate enough to be there at the same time that there was a surf competition going on. It was sponsored by Vans Shoes, and it was called the US Open of Surfing.
There was like a surfing competition, Vans was sponsoring it, so there was like a whole tent selling a bunch of Vans gear. It was all really cool just to see all that kind of stuff.
All the folks who were going in the water were wearing wetsuits because the water was cold. Everybody was carrying a surfboard. It was something straight out of Baywatch.
We went to go spend an evening with my other brother, Kevin, and his daughter, Lily, was home. And they were very hospitable, and we had a great, quick visit with them.
I got to meet his daughter, my cousin, who I had never met, and her name was Lily, and it's really cool because we share a lot of interests when it comes to TV shows. So I got to talk to her about a lot of that, so that was really cool.
After Huntington Beach, we decided to end our trip with a fun day in Disneyland.
This was definitely one of the highlights. This was like my kind of place. I liked Disneyland.
We were pretty excited for the Star Wars World, or it's called Galaxy's Edge, to open, and that we would be there, you know, pretty soon after it had just opened in May. Walking around the park was fun because it really does look like a scene out of Star Wars as you're walking around. You got to see Chewbacca, we got to see Rey, we got to see stormtroopers.
Like you're inside the Millennium Falcon, you could hear like footsteps all around. There was little scenes from the Millennium Falcon that I guess were kind of in the movies or were hinted at in the movies.
Indiana Jones was, in all, my favorite ride because they used one of my favorite soundtracks of all time by John Williams to Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark. So it was very cool for me. It was an awesome ride, 10 out of 10, would recommend.
My favorite part was definitely the last part where the stone comes kind of rolling at you.
If you remember the big boulder that comes down in Raiders of the Lost Ark, they actually had that kind of come down on you a little bit.
So far we have seen the Snow White character with Kate every single visit to Disney World and now Disneyland.
My family and I just had an adventure. We did 5 states, 5 national parks, drove 2,600 miles, and we had a fabulous time.
We definitely spent a lot of time together as a family, sort of getting to know each other a little bit better.
It's the kind of thing where I would do it again, but I wouldn't go longer. 2 weeks was good for me.
I didn't really get much into it. I don't know what it was. I didn't find it too impressive. It wasn't great, honestly. Thanks, Mom and Dad, for taking me on this awesome adventure. One, two. It's harder to breathe up here. I don't know what you want me to say. Rocky Mountains, I don't know. Rockmont? Foothills? There were mountains with snow on top of them. Those were the mountains. It's good. A little scuffed, but.
Come on, we're children. That's us. Oh, my leg. In my mouth. In the mouth.
Kick those knees up.
Man, I'm glad we got here when we got here. You want me to do something?
Hey, that's on film. Watch out.
Full on trip. Mom be tripping. Mom, it hurts to run. Of course it does. Turn it the right way, Mom.
I got my kiss in.
I'm used to like looking at the camera for pictures. Okay, well don't get so pissed at me.
Okay. Can you not mess with that right now, please? My God. Large animals, you know that at any point they could just turn into you and probably just gore you to death. Okay, you can't make noise. Okay. I've always trained my girls to look out for snakes and spiders anytime you're in some place dark. So in all of our adventures, I always tell my girls to watch out for snakes and spiders. So, man. So I've always trained my girls that anytime you're gonna go into. Thank you. Signing off.